Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. High school recruiting is, for the most part, done. Nate Amen has not committed yet. As producer Matt, you had the joke of the Final Four. Producer Matt said Nate Amen might reclassify back to 2026 just to keep this recruitment going, try to get the NIL money up. But Nate Amen was one of 2 5-star McDonald's All-Americans that was still on the board entering Wednesday. But one of them did come off the board. That player is a young man by the name of Brayden Burries. 5-star guard from not far from where I'm from, San Bernardino, California. I think that's right. Is that San Bernardino? Or I think it is. My brain is so fried. I spent 6 days in San Antonio, whatever. But he's from SoCal. I know he went to Roosevelt High School. But on Wednesday, his college recruitment came to an end. He was down to a few schools. USC was kind of after him. Tennessee, I believe he has a sister or cousin that plays softball there. Alabama was on him for a minute. But he said, no. I am going to go to the University of Arizona, baby. That's right. Number 11 player in the class of 2025. Brayden Burries is an Arizona Wildcat. I'll say this. I love this commitment for Arizona. We talked about Arizona earlier. Be warned, this team is on the rise. This program is on the rise. Tommy Lloyd is cooking with gasoline right now, okay? So first of all, Brayden Burries, like I said, Roosevelt High School, as I said, I've seen him play. Like, I don't know why I can't remember the name, the town that his high school is in. But I bring it up because 6'5" guard, he is a kid that, to me, because, let me say this, because he wasn't one of the highest rated players in this class. Yeah, San Bernardino. I was right the whole time. Shout out to Torres. So because this is what I think the deal was with Brayden Burries. Because he wasn't recruited by Kentucky, not recruited, but because Kentucky wasn't in his final list, or Duke, or UConn, or whatever, I just don't think this kid got enough credit for just how good he was, because there weren't, outside of Arizona, these crazy fan bases that were following his minute-to-minute recruitment. But he's a 6'5" guard, plays on the ball, plays off the ball. He's a bigger kid. He kind of gets to the rim. He's physical. I really like his game. I think he's one of the more underrated players in his class. And again, because he's not being recruited by Duke, because he's not being recruited by Kentucky, because he's not putting out a top 5 and a top 10 and a top 12 every single week, we weren't talking about him as much, but he is a very talented player. And I'll say this, he is going to a very talented team potentially at Arizona. So we talked about Arizona. If you missed it earlier in the show, Arizona is in the top 10 of my way too early top 25. But you look at that Arizona team, I think this will probably be Tommy Lloyd's most talented team at Arizona since he's gotten there. You add Brayden Burries. I think Jaden Bradley is for sure coming back. I love Jaden Bradley as a college point guard. He's a guy that he's probably actually a great example of what I was just talking about a minute ago. He was a McDonald's All-American. He starts at Alabama. I think in a different world, he would have just gone pro by now and tried to make it as a pro. He can now be a great 4-year college point guard, make a lot of money, and that is exactly what he is doing. The great college point guard part, I don't know about his financials, not my business, but Jaden Bradley to me is one of the most underrated players in college basketball. 12 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists per game. You put him in a backcourt with Brayden Burries, that is beastly, okay? On top of that, in the front court, Koa Pete, who we talked about a few weeks ago, he ends up committing. Koa is one of the best high school players in America, period, bar none. 6'9" forward, physical, bruiser, athletic, skilled, you name it. He's all of it. He can be skilled, but he can also play in the paint. He can be physical if he has to. His brother plays in the NFL. So Koa is going. Then Toby Owaka is coming back. And, of course, you have Krevis coming back as well. That is a really good team. Now, to me, with Arizona, the X factor is Carter Bryant. We talked about it earlier in the show. Carter Bryant, to me, is I think he is a potential national player of the year candidate if he were to come back. 6'9". I've made the comparison a million times, including once in this show. He reminds me of Rudy Gay when Rudy Gay was at UConn. And you could say, oh, Rudy Gay, what? Rudy Gay played in the NBA for 18 years. Rudy Gay was at UConn when I was at UConn, and he just retired this past fall, like 8 months ago, okay? But 6'8", 6'9", Carter Bryant is an elite athlete, an elite scorer, an elite shooter. You give him another offseason in college basketball to gain confidence and develop, that's a first-team All-American type player, okay? Now, what'll be interesting, he's projected by virtually everybody as a top 15 pick. I think if he goes into workouts, he will get drafted in the top 15 on potential alone. But you talk to the guys who cover Arizona on a day-to-day basis, Jason Shear, Mike Luke, my two BFFs in Arizona. I love both of them. They do unbelievable work. They both, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I think they feel relatively confident that Carter Bryant could return for another year of college basketball. And if Carter Bryant returns for another year of college basketball with Brayden Burries, with Koa Pete, with Toby Awaka, with Jaden Bradley, that is a top 5 team that can compete at the top of the Big 12 with Houston and whoever, BYU, whoever else loads up this summer. So what I love about this is if you add Carter Bryant, I think we're talking about a top 5 team, no doubt. And I'm so upset. I cannot wait to see what Carter Bryant does. I'm hoping he comes back to college, not because he shouldn't go pro if he doesn't want to, but just because I love watching him play at the college level. But at the same time, what I also love about the Burries situation with Koa Pete is that now these freshmen, that's a good thing. They're freshman complementary pieces that can be great, but there isn't pressure on them to be superstars immediately. And so they get to play with veterans. They get to play with really good players. And I think Arizona has a chance to be special. Lastly, let me say this. One of the things about being on the national level, and I'm so grateful to do what I do, you don't always know exactly what's going on in the discourse kind of on a national scale, right? You know what's going on a national scale, I should say. You don't always know what's going on locally. Sometimes a story falls through the cracks. I think there's been a little bit of a Tommy Lloyd pushback at Arizona this year, and I don't get it. I think Tommy Lloyd's a rock star in college basketball, okay? Producer Matt, this will be your 2-minute Arizona clip. I think Tommy Lloyd is a freaking rock star. But I think Arizona fans have felt like, is there a ceiling to what we do? Is there a ceiling to recruiting? Well, first of all, there's not a ceiling to what you can do. You pushed Houston as hard as anybody in the Big 12 all year. You had them on the ropes twice. You couldn't get over the hump. Houston was a defensive stop away from winning a national championship. So that's one. I was actually so impressed with Tommy Lloyd bringing Arizona into the Big 12. I thought it was going to be an adjustment coming from the soft Pac-12. They were as good as anybody not named Houston in that league, and they were good enough. On top of it, by the way, let's also mention this. Let's also mention the fact that they just happened to run into a better team in Duke in the Elite Eight. They played Duke tougher than, or in the Sweet 16, excuse me. They played Duke tougher than Alabama did. So this idea that Tommy Lloyd has somehow underachieved because he can't get past the Sweet 16, sometimes you run into a juggernaut like Duke, which was probably the best team in college basketball this year. Florida's national champs. If you're a Florida fan, don't get mad at me. I'm just saying Duke was most talented team. You pushed them to the wire. And so Tommy Lloyd to me is very good. And not only is he very good, but on top of being very good, there was also this narrative of, can he recruit? Can he close the biggest names? Well, one, I think he's done a great job in the portal. Keyshawn Johnson was not a draftable player, goes to Arizona, is now with the Miami Heat. Pella Larson was a transfer drafted by the Miami Heat. You find other pieces in other spots, but I just bring it up because there's this notion that Tommy Lloyd can't recruit. Well, he just closed out 2 McDonald's All-Americans in the last 2 weeks. So credit to Tommy Lloyd, that staff, Jack Murphy, TJ Benson, all the guys that work so hard behind the scenes. Arizona, to me, they're coming. To quote Deion Sanders, we coming. If you're an Arizona fan, they're coming. It hasn't happened yet, but it doesn't mean that it won't. Tommy Lloyd and Arizona are going to have a monster team going into next year. The big question becomes, of course, what happens with Carter Bryant?